So today we're going to look at another great autofocus lens, and this time the Autofocus 24mm f1.8 by 7Artisans. This lens is an autofocus prime lens with a focal length of 24mm. It's designed for full-frame cameras and has a maximum aperture of f1.8. It's available on Sony E-mount, Nikon Z-mount and L-mount, but today I'm reviewing the E-mount version. All of the images and videos, including this main studio shot, are using this lens. Okay, so the price of this lens is $329. This kind of price is the new normal for third-party autofocus lenses, which are as wide as f1.8 and as wide angle as 24mm. It is worth noting that 7Artisans have sent me this lens for review, but they have no input in the video, they don't get to see it before I publish it, and I will be reviewing honestly. If you haven't seen my channel before, I make lots of videos primarily about Sony cameras and lenses, so subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this. So this lens is a prime 24mm lens for full-frame sensors. If you were to use it on an APS-C camera, then the field of view would be 36mm. So it makes the image you get from this lens quite wide. This makes it suitable for landscape photography and portrait photography if you don't mind being a little closer to your subject. As you can see, it works well in this smallish studio space that I've got. I've still got plenty of room. This lens is good for getting professional looking out of focus backgrounds. That wide maximum aperture of f1.8 makes it excellent for this. And also it being wide aperture makes it a strong performer at night or in poorly lit conditions. So looking at what the lens comes with, it comes with a small box, including documentation and a USB-C cable. Looking at the lens, it's quite large with a metal finish casing and a metal mount. It weighs just under 400 grams, which is just under 1 pound, so not the smallest or the lightest of lenses. The front and rear lens cap are also plastic. The rear of the lens is metal with electronic connections for autofocus and also has USB-C port for any future firmware updates, which, spoiler alert, I think it might need already. The lens also isn't weather sealed. The lens has a 62mm filter thread and a plastic petal-shaped lens hood. The focus ring has very smooth continuous travel, while the aperture ring on this lens ranges from f16 all the way down to the widest of f1.8. This barrel is only notched at f16. Not at every aperture. The travel on this is a little tougher than the focus ring. It also includes a manual and autofocus selector on the lens, as well as a lens hold button. The minimum focus distance on this lens is 32 centimeters, means you can't get focus super close to your subject, seeing as it's a wider angle lens, and focus can be a little soft when shooting up close. But I wouldn't say that that is this lens's major use case. Talking about focusing, the autofocus system on this lens is pretty quick and accurate. It is a little noisy when setting focus, though, again, like many of these lenses, it's not too noticeable. It isn't the quickest autofocus I've used, but most of the time, for most types of shooting, it is absolutely fine. It's also worth mentioning that a camera at this price doesn't have image stabilization. Okay, I'd maybe start to be hoping that some of these third-party lenses would have it, but that's how they keep the price down, remembering that this is a wide aperture and wide angle lens. $329 is still fairly cheap. So without that stabilization, you will need to use in-body stabilization or a gimbal. Though I would be wary when setting up with in-body stabilization, because I found that this didn't work straight away unless you set it to the correct focal length within those settings. This is where maybe that updated firmware will be required shortly. It still does work, but it might just need a bit of tuning in. So, okay, let's look at the image quality. You'll have seen from the examples so far that it is pretty sharp, and I found wide open at its maximum aperture of f1.8, this lens is quite sharp in the center of images, though it does get blurrier at the edges. If you stop the lens down to f2.8 or f4, it does get even sharper at the center and is decently sharp at the edges, so pretty good results. Also at the widest aperture of f1.8, there is very strong vignetting, which is the darkening of the images around the edges. Stopping the lens down to f f4, however, doesn't really lighten the image up as much as you would expect, so the vignetting is still quite noticeable. Well, it's also worth mentioning when using an APS-C camera, you'll find the sharpness is even better at the corners of f1.8 because of that cropping down to 36mm. And you'll find using this lens at f1.8 has very smooth out-of-focus backgrounds, which is great for portraits or subject photography. Paired with its sharp image quality, it does make for great subject photography as you can get that separation between the subject and the background very nicely. There is also very good contrast in the images, making shots look striking and clear. The low light performance from this lens is good, meaning you can use it in low light and indoors with less grain than a lens with a narrower aperture. Another strong point is that I've barely noticed any chromatic aberration, which can reveal itself in the form of purpley colours at the edges of details. With this lens, I haven't really noticed too much of that. So overall, the 7Artisans 24mm f1.8 is a good lens for the price of $329. There aren't that many autofocus lenses at this wide aperture and wide focal length of 24mm around at this price. It has sharp image quality, making it a good choice for landscape photography. It has an accurate autofocus system and provides good low light performance with professional looking background blur. Paired with that good contrast, it makes images taken with this lens look very good. For the price, this is a decent budget full frame 24mm lens, especially if you are on a limited budget.